Welcome back to Everyone Has a Story, True Tales from Everyday Life. Last week, you heard Jimmy's story. This week, we're going to hear Kelly's story. And it's a remarkable story. And Kelly, it all started when you were born, because it's sad. And Kelly, it all started when you were born, because it's sad. But your dad had passed before you were even born.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. It was a bit of an unusual situation. My mom and dad were 20 years apart, age-wise. But still, she was 25 and he was only 45. They'd been married for less than a year, about 10 or 11 months. And in January of 1966, he had a massive heart attack in his sleep and passed away. And she was pregnant with me. They had all kinds of plans that didn't end up happening, didn't work out. If you'd like to hear that story in great detail, there is a video on our station, on our channel, about that story of Dad died before I was born. But yeah, that's how life started. He was gone before I even got here. And Mom was just a few months pregnant with me, ended up moving back to her parents' home in Slavic Village, which is basically it's a very ethnic neighborhood outside of Cleveland, Ohio. So she moved back in with her parents in a tiny little 800 square foot home, if you can believe it, and raised me there. So I was raised by my mom, a divorced aunt, and my two maternal grandparents. That's George and Violet. Very close-knit family, and 5 people living in a really small house.
Wow.
But I sure was loved. I had a lot of love growing up.
It sure sounds like it. Speaking of your family and your Slavic village upbringing, obviously I've benefited from a lot of your Slavic, your Eastern European cooking, and learning to say words that I never thought I'd ever be able to say in my life. And some of them I'm not going to get ready to do. So, but your grandparents on your mom's side came from
Czechoslovakia.
Czechoslovakia.
My great-grandfather was from Prague, and my great-grandmother was from a little town in Bohemia called Písek. Part of my grandfather's family, his dad's side, which I have found now is actually Ashkenazi Jew. I'm into genealogy quite a bit, and I actually ended up finding my grandfather's family name, Sabatka, on a survivor list from Terezin in Prague. And that's kind of how I knew that was the background of that family name, because my cousins had gone to Czechoslovakia and Prague looking for the family name in Catholic churches because they were raised Catholic, but they couldn't find the name on the lists of Catholic churches at all.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, and so as I learned more, I learned that Sabatka means one who holds the Sabbath, and then I later found the name on a Terezin survivor list. Terezin, that's a whole nother story.
It's a concentration camp.
Yeah.
The Germans put together in World War II. That was a horrible time and a horrible place for your family. You have a grandmother that we did a video about, but yes. A little bit of a backstory on her.
Josepha, yes. Josepha Kunat was my great-grandmother, my mom's father's mother, and she came to this country alone in the late 1800s at barely 18 years old. She did the crossing by herself in steerage class. this was an amazing story that she managed to get here from that little town of Pissek to Germany, to Bremen, to get on a ship that was not really even meant to be ocean going. Yeah, Josephus' journey. It's another video you can find on our channel, but she had an amazing story just in how she got from that tiny little town in Bohemia to eventually ending up in Cleveland, Ohio, and marrying my great-grandfather.
Your dad's family, where is he from?
My dad's side of the family is quite a mix, quite an interesting mix. We are technically a group called Melungeons. It is a triracial isolate. Usually it is made up of people who have backgrounds from Africa, from Native American genealogy, and usually Scots Irish, and that is exactly what our background is. On my dad's side of the family, we actually had some members way back, family name of Sizemore, that were Portuguese Jews, although they were Sephardic Jews. They were making a journey between England and the Caribbean and the United States, and it seemed like every time they came to the United States, they would meet a lovely native woman and start a family. And so that is where our Native American roots come from. We are Piscataway, which is a very old line of Shawnee, and there's the Shawnee, and then there's a little bit of Powhatan as well, which is from the part of the family that spent some time in Jamestown. One of my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmothers was actually involved in a relationship with one of the men who had a charter for Jamestown. The Sizemores and the Native American women founded one part of my family, and then the other part of the family, who had the surname Heron, were Scots Irish. They were actually lowlander Scots that were border rivers, and were then displaced over to the plantations in Ireland when that whole thing was happening, and then came over here to the area that is the Carolinas now, moved into Tennessee, and so my dad's family is really from the Clinch Mountain area of Tennessee that has a pretty strong Melungeon population.
Well, from Clinch Mountain, your dad must have been a great musician.
Oh, he sure was. My dad played guitar and mandolin. Dad was actually such an accomplished musician and so well known in his little town in West Virginia that little
Jimmy Pickens?
Yeah, little
From
Jimmy
the Grand Ole
Pickens from
Opry?
the Grand Ole Opry actually came to him and asked him to join his band and to play with him at the Grand Ole Opry. But Dad had two little girls at the time. Those are my two half-sisters, and was working in the coal mines in West Virginia and didn't think that it was appropriate to go off and do such a thing. So never made it to the Grand Ole Opry.
He had a handicap, by the way, didn't he?
He sure did. He was missing the middle finger on his left hand. I was going to hold my hand up to show you, but that would not be very good. One of the wedding photos from his and my mom's wedding day, he was so proud of his wedding ring, and it shows him sitting on the couch in their apartment in his suit, looking all dapper with his hand out over his leg and showing off his wedding ring, but the finger next to it, nope, gone.
Oh my goodness. Your heritage is your grandmother or great-grandmother was born into slavery.
Yes, that was the African part of my dad's family. My great-grandmother on Dad's side, his mother's mother, was of African descent and was born as being owned by, this is so strange to say, but she was actually owned by my great-grandfather. And in the mid 1800s, she took care of his children, the children of him and his wife at the time. And yeah, she was born into slavery, and then after after slavery was ended, she continued to work for him. His wife had died, and she continued to work for him. And then eventually they had my grandmother together. Because I was raised in inner city Cleveland, that meant that I was in the Cleveland Public School District, and that was in the early to late 70s. And there was a lot of tension regarding neighborhoods that schools were in, and children possibly being disadvantaged because of the neighborhoods that their schools were in. So someone came up with the bright idea to do busing. So they took all of us who had the best grades and bused us to a school in the system that was the most dangerous. We were a group of white and black kids together. So it wasn't just a bunch of, white kids. And I certainly did not come from any privileged neighborhood whatsoever. I came from a lower middle income neighborhood.
Or tell me a bit about the story about how you transitioned from the Cleveland school systems to what's the name of the school you went to?
Hawkins School.
Hawkins School.
Yeah, Hawkins School in Gates Mills, Ohio. I was in the 8th grade in this school that I just told you about that was very rough and kind of dangerous for us. And I had a biology teacher that she believed in me wholeheartedly. She was full in. She believed in me. And there was an opportunity to test to be chosen for a scholarship to one of the CCIS schools, which are an independent school system within the Cleveland area. And so there were about 3 or 4 of us that took a Saturday and took this exam to see whether we were, I guess, good enough to warrant receiving a scholarship from this group of schools. I was not initially chosen. There was a friend of mine that was. For reasons unknown to me, he decided not to take it. And I was second in line. And so that opened the possibility for me to be able to get a scholarship. But the scholarship was for Hathaway Brown, which was an all-girls school in that group of schools. I had visited Hawkins as well, and it was, compared to the Cleveland City School District, it was like paradise on earth, and I had fallen head over heels in love. And so I did not take the scholarship. At that time, in 1981, Hawkins' annual tuition was $5,000 a year. That was a tremendous amount of money, period. And it was especially a tremendous amount of money for the daughter of an RN who was raising me basically as a single mom. Even though I was living in her parents' home, she didn't make that kind of money. Fortunately for me, the divorced aunt that I told you about, her name was Marlene. She was vice president of Federal Metal Company in Bedford, Ohio. The people who owned the company were tremendous supporters of education, and they wanted to do something to help. They offered me a summer job for 3 summers while I was at Hawkins, and they paid me an obscene amount of money. I should never, ever have been paid a teenager, ever. So between my Aunt Marlene and the Naguski family of Federal Metal Company in Bedford, Ohio, and my registered nurse mom, somehow they pulled the money together, and I was able to go, and life was a dream for the last 3 years of high school for me. It was just amazing.
What a remarkable story from Slavic Village, which you still had to transfer daily from, which I believe was about 30-mile drive.
Yeah, it was a 45-minute drive. And then as soon as I turned 16, Mom made sure that I had her old car. She got a new car, gave me the hand-me-down, made sure I had my driver's license. And I don't know how in the world she had this much trust in a 16-year-old, but she sent me off driving from Slavic Village, Cleveland to Gates Mills, Ohio by myself for the next 2 years. And
fantastic.
That's how I got through high school.
Great stories, great stories. While you were at Hawkins, I think you met a extraordinary young man.
I sure
there.
did.
What was? Why was he at Hawkins?
Well, you're talking about Rolf Anderson.
Yeah.
And he was the exchange student for the first year that I was at Hawken, 1981 to 1982. He was living with a family in Cleveland Heights, and he just happened to have the locker across the hall from me. And he was, this is going to embarrass him when he sees this, but he was tall and blue-eyed and blonde, and he was just, he was amazing looking. And I had a crush almost instantly. But we got to be really good friends, and we developed that friendship over that year that he was at Hawken, and it has been, wow, 42 years now, almost. And we're still really close friends. We still talk several times a month, phone, video, WhatsApp. We're still in touch, and we're still like family.
Good. In fact, speaking of family, I believe that you actually took a couple trips to Sweden.
I did, yeah. Once I graduated from high school, that was my graduation gift, was a trip to Sweden. So that first summer in 1984, Rolf came to spend time with my mom and I in a vacation place that we used to use in Florida, in St. Pete, Florida. And then we flew back to his little town in Sweden and spent a few weeks there. And then the year after that, I went back again and spent the summer with him and his mom. And if you have been watching any of the videos from this channel, you will know them quite well as Rolf and Ingemai, and my summers in Sweden, and some of the fantastic tales and adventures that happened those couple summers. Those were pretty
Extraordinary.
special.
Yeah. Your dad being a musician, the apple didn't fall far from the tree, and that you were trained as a classical flautist. And so after you graduated from Hawken, you had a dilemma. You had to decide which direction you were going to go. I believe you were a quality musician, and family had some other ideas?
Yes, I was very much interested in architecture. But I was actually more interested in the structure underneath that supported the architecture. So one of the things that I really wanted to do is become a structural engineer.
Wow.
But I was a really good musician, and I really, really loved it. And I remember having a struggle at the time, really wanting to be a musician, and people telling me, "You're going to be a starving musician. You can't support yourself as a flutist. You can't. That's not going to pay enough money. You should stick with engineering." So I was 18, and I said, "Well, yeah, I want money. I want to be able to support myself." So I stuck with engineering, and Case Western Reserve University was my top pick, and so that's what I did. About a year and a half into it, I was really having some second thoughts. Because it was hard. It was a really, really tough school, but I made it through. I made it through in 4 years with a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering, and specifically structural engineering.
And while you were there, you actually met somebody that changed your life.
And there's a story about that as well. My husband Bryan grew up in Chesterland, but the county line literally is right like between the school property and where his family lived, where he grew up. And there was a driveway that went from Hawken past all the athletic fields out onto a road called Sherman. For whatever reason, when I was waiting for Mom to come pick me up, I would take a walk when the weather was really good and go out that long driveway, and there was this house, and I would look at this house, and I don't know why this house was so fascinating to me, but it just was. So that was that. So several years passed, 3 or 4 years passed. I met Bryan in the commuter lounge at Case, because neither one of us lived there. We didn't really have the money to be staying in the dorms there, so we commuted. We were lucky enough to be in the school, so we just drove there back and forth every day. And we met, and eventually he took me, back to his house one day as we were dating, as the relationship was continuing on, meeting his parents, etc. And lo and behold, that was a house that I used to look at.
Really?
Yeah, when I was in high school. It's strange.
How very interesting. So, after you graduated from Chase, and even before that, there were travels in your life. Can you tell me a little bit about the travels that you've had?
Yeah, my mom and dad, like I said, had made plans when they learned that she was pregnant with me. And one of the things they wanted to do was travel with me. And so she wanted to honor that. That was his wish, and that's what she wanted to do, and that's what they had decided. So Mom and my Aunt Marlene again, and my mom's mom, Grandma Violet. So once a year, the three women would plan this extraordinary trip, and we would go, and I was the beneficiary of that. And I remember when I was like 4 years old or something, I remember this clearly. Mom and Marlene asked me, well, where would you like to go? Why they're asking a 4-year-old child, I don't know. But first answer was Australia. That was off the table. That was too far. So so we ended up in Hawaii instead because, well, that was kind of on the way. So there were five or six summers that we spent touring around and vacationing in Hawaii. So that was a big part of my childhood, that culture. And I think my first exposure to what tribal life really means and how important that can be. Because in the early 1970s, Hawaii was a very, very different place than it is now. It was still very much old Hawaii in a lot of the places. And from there, we did a lot of traveling in the Caribbean. Yeah, it was great. We had great trips.
Wonderful. What's your favorite vacation ever?
You're not going to like this answer. The next one.
I love it. Did you say road trip?
I have wanderlust very bad, and I am always so excited about a trip. It doesn't matter if it's a trip 2 hours up the road or halfway around the world. I really enjoy travel because I love people, and I love to meet people from different places. And one of the very important things, my mom taught me to travel, and she taught me to be excited about travel and to be open to travel and enjoying travel. Rolf taught me that travel is about people and really getting to know the people of the place, not just the place itself.
Your love affair with this crazy cowboy town of Cave Creek in Arizona. How did that all come about?
Bryan was actually working for a company back in Cleveland that had a satellite office here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And we flew out to Phoenix for the first time in October of 1990. And I fell in love. I just absolutely fell in love. I fell in love with the cactus. I fell in love with the mountains. I fell in love with the weather. But the one thing that I remember that stands out amongst anything else was stepping out onto the balcony at sunset. And the color that I saw in the sky was unlike anything I had ever imagined could even be possible. The blues and the purples and the reds and corals and just the way that there was a gradient from color to color to color in a perfectly clear sky and a silhouette of a saguaro in front of it all. I think that was it. I fell in love, and I fell in love with how casual it has always been around here. You know, being from Cleveland, people, business suits and dresses and pantyhose and all that sort of thing. And I've never really been that kind of person. And I could go on and on and on. So that is when the love affair started, October of 1990.
Is it still going on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is literally, quite literally, overused word, I know, but this is a dream come true.
How did you feel when you wrote your first book?
That was amazing. Thank you. by the way. If you want to know what we're referring to, go 2 weeks back on our videos. That was absolutely amazing. I guess always in the back of my head, because I am a hopeless bibliophile. I love to read and I love books. And thank you, Mom. That was from my mom. Where my mom was concerned with me, I didn't have much of a budget if I was buying books. The only caveat was that I had to read them. I couldn't be buying books that I just would never read. And I read every single book that she ever bought for me. And I guess somewhere in the back of my mind, I always thought, boy, wouldn't that be cool to be the one who's actually writing and then actually having gotten one done. And now we have how many between us? 7?
7 books, yes.
7 books. And we have 2 more planned for this year.
You've shared with us a bit about motivational speaking when you're on the platform. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's actually a little bit more difficult of a question than I thought it would be when I first heard it. But it's an honor. That's how I feel. We've all been through our own emotional and mental struggles through our lives. There's not a single person that has not been there. And if they say they haven't been, they're either extraordinarily lucky or not being completely honest with themselves. We've all been there. And when someone honors me with the opportunity to say something that might turn a light on or help them look at something just a little bit differently, it's not that I'm an expert or my life is perfect and in order, because it certainly is not that. But sometimes we have different experiences that help other people, and it makes me happy and it brings me joy if there's something I can do to make one person feel a little bit better, and most importantly feel a little bit more in control of themselves and what they're doing and how they're living their lives.
Wow. Yeah, seriously. I have a couple more questions to ask you. It's been humbling to watch you grow as in another segment of your life, your tribal life, to watch you grow from a person who knew they had Native ancestry, and I've watched you grow as a tribal person. Tell me a little bit how you feel about it and where you are and what you want to be doing with it.
Another question that's not as easy as it sounds. Humbling. Like I've come home. Part of me that has wanted to learn more about this part of my family for a very long time, and not finding anyone, I guess, that I could trust as authentic and sincere. I will say that having found you, Jim Kiji, was an extraordinary stroke of luck for me, in that you were the person I was waiting for, to have that trust in. I've learned so much. I feel like I've grown quite a bit in the last 11 years. I'm endlessly grateful for you trusting me to share these things with. I've done my best to be a good student. That's not searching for compliments, just I've done my best to be a good student and to be earnest in my learning. I come from a really long line, and my mom's side of the family of women healers. They've all been healers of some sort. My grandmother, Violet, I call her a kitchen witch. I know people don't really like that word too much, but so we call her a kitchen healer. It's all the same thing, but using everyday pantry items and kitchen things to help her family feel better. My mom was a registered nurse, and that was her way of healing. And she was a nurse down to her very bones. And this is how the healing in the women's side of my family has found me in a tribal way. And it feels really comfortable and it feels good.
Good.
And I'm honored.
As I am honored to have shared with you all things that I could share with you. You're an extraordinary student, little girl from Slavic village who
True.
lived on one street, basically.
Yep, I'm very proud of my background, and I'm very proud of my heritage. Proud that my dad's family is from West Virginia. Proud that I can say I'm from that little area of Slavic village, because we had a pretty special group of people there.
Well, by the time you see this video, we will be well over 100 subscribers at Everyone Has a Story, TrueTales from Everyday Life. You've gotten a glimpse into the how and why that we are here to move forward with our YouTube channel. And we appreciate you being here, and we really appreciate so much the subscribers who took a chance on us and have grown our channel the way it's growing. There are going to be so many more things. We're going to be talking about a horrific dam issue or problem that happened in California.
Yep.
And the remarkable woman who has created a memorial for it, and story after story after story. We're going to be touring Ohio, and we're going to be interviewing several people there who will bring more stories for you from that area.
And let me also put this invitation to you, all of you who are watching this video, whether it's right now or it's 5 years from now. If you have an extraordinary tale from an everyday person, whether it's you or you know someone who does, we would love to hear from you about yourself or about that person that you're thinking of. Have them contact us, because this is truly a station that is becoming about you. We started with Jim and Kelly. That was just the beginning. It's really about everyone has a story.
Yes. True tales from everyday life. And we'd really appreciate it if you've enjoyed this kind of content, that you would hit the like button and give us a thumbs up. And if you really want to be connected with what's going on, we'd appreciate you hitting the subscribe button and join us so you get notifications every week of what's coming up.
And if you like it, share it. That helps us tremendously as well. It helps the algorithm know that you guys are enjoying this video. Please help us out. We're so glad you're here.
True tales from everyday life. Everyone has a story.